In 2015, the University of North Carolina in Wilmington contacted the quilt guilds in North Carolina and asked each guild to nominate 4 quilters from their guild for the Living Treasure Award, which is an award that is given to craftsmen, bookbinders, potters, glassmakers, and this was the first year that they have done quilters. Anyway, I was selected as the Living Treasure of 2015.
Several years ago, our son was going to take over a battalion at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So we started to think about what could we do for Brian and give him a gift that would mean a lot to him. So I came up with this, and my husband participated because we had to find a lot of the patches online. And so we kind of patched this together, literally. It either has to do with one of the members of the family up at the top. I put those up at the top and then started with the patches, trying to collate them with the name underneath it. Well, it wasn't always possible. There's still room on the quilt to put more patches for our son, who just joined the 101st Airborne Division. And I had to put a joke somewhere in here. You know, it had to be kind of a joke. So this patch down here, it says Accotink Academy, and that's where my son went to preschool. And it looks very official, and you know, you might think it's military, but I just thought I had to add that. It's a treasure, and I managed to wrestle it out of my son's hands to bring it here today just to share it.
When I was a little girl, every weekend we'd go to my grandparents, and I was blessed to have a mother, grandmother, and great aunt who all did different types of handwork, and I learned different things from each of them. This was actually my second little quilt, and these scraps were from my great-grandmother's clothing. And even for an 8-year-old or so, I thought I did pretty good, better than I thought when I opened it up and re-looked at them. Done by hand, not machine, and I have visions pretty close to the top of the list now of finishing this up because it holds so much history and love and joy for me.
I call it the third time is the charm because it took 3 years and 3 different methods to do it. The first time you had to cut out all these pre-squared blocks, and I put them together and nothing fit. The whole thing was a reject. So the next time I tried doing hand quilting, because I've been a hand quilter for years and I just started doing machine quilting, and I am 1/4 inch challenged. I tried the hand quilting and I still wasn't happy with the results. The third time I went to and I made paper piecing template, and it finally came down. All my piecing is correct. So I call this the third time is the charm. This quilt is all the rejects, and I designed it, and I had to make 2 additional blocks, and that's all. So never give up on an unfinished object is my philosophy.
I'm an engineer, and to sit there and take a piece of fabric and figure out how to make it look, it's beautiful, but how to make it more beautiful or use it in an intricate pattern to make that pattern just stand out and pop, as they say. That's what it's all about for me.
A couple of the quilts that we make for our men, these are stretcher quilts. They're specifically designed to go over the men or women who are injured, who are on a litter, who have and it's probably about a 6 to 7 hour flight from Ramstein, Germany, back to the United States. So you're lying on a stretcher for 6 hours, and it gets pretty chilly in the 30,000 feet in a cargo plane that has been reconfigured to carry patients.
When I started quilting at age 50, mind you, my mother said, I don't understand why you would cut all that nice fabric into little tiny pieces and then sew it back together again. Why don't you just go to Penny's and buy a quilt for $39.99? As I began to quilt and get better and better as a quilter and make quilts for everybody in my family, suddenly my very adamant mother, I could tell, really wanted a quilt. So I made this quilt for her and gave it to her, and she used it every day in the nursing home where she was for 15 years and said, I want you to get this back when I die. I want you to have this quilt. So this quilt became very dear to her, and it is very dear to me now.
My great Aunt Katie, she was really a quilter. This quilt I have with me is one of hers. And then this is Mother Zula, my great uncle's mother. This picture is from 1944. Well, I remember staying with her when we used to go to visit down in Arkansas back in the sticks. Her beds were always so nice and soft, and she had these quilts on them. So these are the ladies that I remember quilting, but especially Aunt Katie. I wish I had been old enough to realize, how wonderful it would be to learn how to quilt and maybe get some ideas from her. This was done by Aunt Katie, and this is one of the things that made me want to start learning how to quilt, because I always wanted to be able to make, I guess you call it the Star of Bethlehem. These quilts are quilts that made me want to learn how to quilt.